All right, welcome back for another deep dive into the Penrose effect.
Yes, we're picking up with chapter 3, the cracks deepen.
Ooh, that title already sounds ominous. Remember how we left off last time?
Oh yeah, things were getting pretty strange for our protagonist.
That encounter in the alley and then that unsettling dream.
Definitely left us with a lot of questions.
Well, let's see what new twists and turns this chapter has in store. Ready to jump in?
Absolutely, lead the way.
Okay, so chapter 3 starts with the third day dawned under a heavy sky, thick with clouds that seemed to press down on the city, casting everything in a washed-out gray.
Oh, I can practically feel that oppressive atmosphere.
Right. I felt a strange weight as I moved through my morning routine, an invisible pressure that had settled over me since the strange encounter in the alley and the memory, if that's what it was, that had surfaced in my dream.
The author is really good at setting the tone, isn't he? It's like you can sense something bad is about to happen.
Yeah. And notice how the protagonist is already questioning his own memory. Work felt distant, the tasks meaningless, as though I were moving through someone else's life.
Almost like he's detached from reality.
Exactly. The people around me seemed like shadows, figures in a fog, and I struggled to shake the feeling that I was on the verge of uncovering something important, something hidden within the shadows of my own mind.
It's a classic sign of someone on the verge of a psychological breakdown, right?
Yeah, you get that feeling. I knew deep down that I was losing control, slipping into a place I didn't fully understand. Now, here's where things get interesting. Remember Lila?
Oh yeah, the mysterious coworker.
Halfway through the morning, I glanced over at Lila, who was watching me again. Her expression guarded but tinged with something I couldn't quite name. Concern, perhaps, or even fear.
She's always watching, isn't she? Makes you wonder what she knows.
Right. Like she holds all the cards.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask her what she knew, to press her for answers, but I didn't know how to start. Part of me wasn't even sure she would tell me, or if I'd understand it if she did.
It's like he's drawn to her, but also afraid of what she might reveal.
Yeah, total push and pull. Finally, I walked over to her desk, feeling my pulse quicken. Okay, I'm already getting nervous just reading this.
Me too. The tension is palpable.
She looked up as I approached, a faint, knowing smile playing on her lips. Ooh, that knowing smile.
What do you think it means?
I don't know, but it doesn't feel good. Could we talk? I asked, keeping my voice low.
It feels like a clandestine meeting in broad daylight.
Totally. She nodded, glancing around the room before leading me to a quiet corner of the office, far from curious eyes and listening ears.
Like they have to be careful about who might be watching.
Exactly, the paranoia is already setting in. You seem different these past few days, she said, her voice soft but serious, like you're starting to remember things you'd rather not.
So she knows. She knows something's up with his memory.
And this is where the protagonist really starts to freak out. The words hit me like a physical blow, and I felt a surge of confusion and anger. Remember things? What do you mean? Do you know something about what's happening to me?
I can only imagine how disorienting that would be.
Right. To have someone else point out that your memories are messed up. She studied me for a moment, her gaze steady and unflinching. Sometimes, she said slowly, choosing her words carefully, we bury things, memories, experiences deep within ourselves, things that are too painful or dangerous to face. And sometimes those things find their way back, whether we're ready or not.
Very cryptic.
Very. It's like she's hinting at something but not giving him the full picture. I stared at her, the words settling heavily within me. She knew something more than she was letting on, more than she should know. I felt my mind racing, piecing together fragments of memory and half-formed thoughts. And the more I thought, the clearer it became that she was connected to whatever had been buried in my mind.
This is where it starts to feel like a real conspiracy.
I know, right? Like she's not just an innocent bystander. What do you know about Prometheus? I asked, the name slipping out before I could stop myself. Okay, finally. The name Prometheus appears.
I've been waiting for that. It keeps popping up like a recurring dream.
And her reaction is not what you'd expect. Her face tightened, a flicker of something dark passing over her features. That's a dangerous question, she replied, her voice barely a whisper. There are people, forces that don't want you asking that.
Chills. Literal chill.
I know, right? What are these forces she's talking about? And why is Prometheus such a taboo subject? I felt a chill run through me, a prickling fear at the base of my spine. Why? What does it mean?
This is where the stakes get real.
Big time. Lila hesitated, glancing around as if to make sure no one was watching, before leaning in closer. Prometheus is just a name, she said, but it's also a symbol for those who seek truth, those who refuse to be bound by chains.
So Prometheus represents freedom, breaking free from control.
Right. Her words struck a deep, resonant chord within me, and I felt a flicker of recognition, a faint sense of purpose stirring within the fog of confusion. I didn't fully understand what she was saying, but I knew that it was important, that it was connected to the memories that had started to surface.
Even though he's confused, he's starting to feel a sense of purpose, like he's on a mission.
Exactly. And then he starts to remember something concrete. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I think I'm starting to remember things I don't want to remember. There was a room, a man in a white coat. He said it was for my own good, but it didn't feel right, it felt like.
Oh man, a man in a white coat. That's never a good sign in these kinds of stories.
It's like a classic symbol of medical authority, right? But with a sinister twist. Like you were being erased, Lila finished, her voice barely above a whisper.
Erased? What does that even mean?
That's what the protagonist wants to know. I nodded, the words settling over me with a chilling finality. Erased. That was exactly what it had felt like, as though parts of myself had been stripped away, locked behind walls I couldn't see or touch.
It's a terrifying thought to have your own memories stolen from you.
And Lila confirms it's not just his imagination. Layla reached out, placing a gentle hand on my arm. You're not alone in this, she said. There are others who have gone through what you have, others who remember, but it's dangerous, the things you're trying to uncover. There are those who will do anything to keep them hidden.
So there are others. This is bigger than just one man's memory.
Yeah, it's a whole conspiracy, and a dangerous one at that. Her words lingered in my mind, heavy with implication. But before I could ask her more, she pulled away, glancing around nervously. Be careful, she whispered. If you dig too deep, they'll notice, and they won't let you go so easily.
Wow, that's a pretty serious warning.
The rest of the day passed in a blur, her words echoing in my mind, filling me with a strange mixture of dread and determination. I felt like I was on the edge of something vast and terrifying, an abyss that I couldn't yet see but that I knew I had to cross.
The intrigue just keeps building.
And then at the end of the day, he's drawn back to the alley. When I left the office, I found myself drawn back to the alley where I had first seen the graffiti. The wall was still bare, stripped of the painted letters. But as I stood there, I felt a faint tugging at the edges of my mind, a whisper that I couldn't quite hear.
The alley is like a symbol of his subconscious, isn't it?
I closed my eyes, letting the memories come, fragments of images and sounds weaving together in a fractured tapestry. I was back in that cold, sterile room, the hum of machines filling the silence. I could feel the presence of someone else, a shadow hovering just out of sight, watching me with a detachment that made my skin crawl.
Okay, now I'm getting creeped out.
Right. It's like we're right there with him in that room. The man in the white coat appeared, his face cold and expressionless. He leaned down, his eyes studying me with an intensity that felt invasive, as though he could see through the layers of my mind, past every wall I had built to protect myself.
This is straight out of a nightmare.
We're doing this for your own good, he said, his voice smooth and emotionless. There are things you don't need to remember, things that would only hurt you. We're here to help.
That line is so chilling. It's like the ultimate gaslighting.
I know, right? Making him question his own sanity. I wanted to scream, to fight, but my body felt heavy, paralyzed, as if bound by invisible chains. I could feel his hand on my shoulder, cold and clinical, and a sharp prick on my arm as something cold seeped into my veins, dulling my senses, blurring the edges of my vision.
It's just so unsettling.
Totally. And then, just when you think it can't get any weirder, and then, just as the memory began to fade, I saw a word Prometheus scrolled on a piece of paper, barely visible, but unmistakable.
Prometheus again, so it's connected to those memories.
I jerked awake, my heart racing, the memory dissolving into shadows. But the word remained, vivid and sharp, a reminder of the truth that lay just out of reach. I could feel the walls of the Penrose effect tightening around me, the mental barriers that had been built to contain me, to keep me from remembering.
The Penrose effect. The invisible prison of the mind.
But something had shifted within me, something fierce and unyielding. I couldn't stop now, not when I was so close. Layla's words echoed in my mind, urging me forward, telling me that I wasn't alone, that there were others who understood, others who remembered.
Despite the danger, he's determined to find the truth.
He's not giving up. As I made my way home, I felt a sense of resolve settling over me, a determination that burned like a fire. I would find the truth, no matter the cost, no matter the danger. Because I was Prometheus, chained to my own mind, bound by the invisible walls that others had built around me.
He's claiming that symbol as his own.
And I knew, with a certainty that filled me with both fear and hope, that I would either break free or be lost in the maze forever. I know, right? What a way to end the chapter. So, phew, chapter 3 really kicks things up a notch.
Yeah, it does. Lots to dig into there.
I mean, where do we even begin?
Well, Lila, for one.
Oh, absolutely. She is such a fascinating character.
Yeah, so mysterious. Every time she's on the page, I'm just like, what is she up to? What does she know?
Right. Like, is she an ally? Or is she manipulating the protagonist? Or is she being manipulated herself?
That's the thing. We just don't know yet. The author keeps her motives very close to the vest, you know?
Totally. And that knowing smile, ooh, that sends shivers down my spine.
I know. What was that about? Like, she's orchestrating this whole thing.
Exactly. She clearly knows way more than she's letting on, especially about Prometheus.
Like, every time that name comes up, the tension just goes way up. It's almost like a forbidden word or something.
Yeah, like it holds some kind of key to this whole mystery.
Well, she did say it's a symbol for those seeking truth.
Right, but then she also warns him about, these powerful forces that don't want him asking questions.
Which, makes you wonder if she's in danger, too. Maybe she's holding back information to protect herself or someone else.
Oh, interesting point.
And it's not just what she says, it's how she acts, like sneaking off to that corner of the office for their conversation.
Yeah, that was creepy, like they're being watched.
Exactly. Adds to that whole paranoid vibe of the chapter. That feeling that someone's always accosting, that big brother is watching you.
Totally. And then that flashback to the room with the man in the white coat.
Oh, so chilling.
Right. Like, first of all, man in a white coat, not usually a good sign in a thriller.
Nope, never a good sign.
Yeah.
Especially with that cold, emotionless demeanor. It's just so classic, but so effective.
Yeah. And then when Lila says the word erased.
Chills, literal chills. Like, what does that even mean? What are they erasing? And why?
Right. And the way the protagonist describes it, it's like they're stealing parts of him. His memories, his experiences.
Yeah, his identity. It's like a violation of his very being. Really disturbing stuff.
And then the fact that Lila says he's not alone in this.
Yeah, there are others, which makes you think this isn't just some random event. It's a systematic thing, maybe even an experiment of some sort.
Right, a whole conspiracy. And he's stumbled right into the middle of it.
And now that he's starting to remember, he's a threat to them.
Which is why Lila tells him to be careful.
Oh, yeah. Her warning was pretty intense.
Right. She's scared for him. She knows what he's up against.
And she knows they won't hesitate to silence him if he gets too close to the truth.
It makes you wonder, has she experienced this erasure herself?
Maybe. Or maybe she knows someone who has. I mean, it's pretty clear she's been affected by this whole thing in some way.
Absolutely. But despite all the warnings, he's determined to uncover the truth.
He's not going to back down, even if it puts him in danger, especially after that flashback to the room. That's a major turning point for him.
It is. It's like something inside him has snapped.
Yeah, he's done being a victim. He's reclaiming his power.
And the way he embraces the name Prometheus at the end?
Oh, yeah, that was powerful. Like, he's no longer just some guy caught in a web of conspiracies. He's a symbol of resistance.
Exactly. He's going to fight back against those who tried to control him.
He's going to break free or die trying.
Talk about a cliffhanger ending.
Seriously, I can't wait to see what happens next.
Well, the next chapter is called The Descent, so I'm guessing things are about to get even darker.
Oh, I bet they do. He's going to have to face some serious challenges to get to the bottom of this.
And I have a feeling Lila will be right there with him, for better or worse.
Yeah, she's definitely a wild card in all of this. Her role is still so unclear.
Agreed. It's what makes this story so compelling. We just have to keep listening to find out what happens next. As we finish up The Cracks Deepen, it just leaves you with this unsettling feeling.
Oh, yeah, like you've just stepped into the Twilight Zone or something.
Exactly. Like the ground is shifting beneath your feet and you can't quite trust anything or anyone.
The author does a brilliant job of creating that atmosphere of paranoia and uncertainty. You're constantly questioning what's real, what's imagined, what's being manipulated.
Right. And I think that's one of the things that makes this story so compelling. It's not just a thriller. It's a psychological puzzle that makes you think about the nature of reality itself.
Absolutely. Like, what does it even mean to remember something? And what happens when those memories are tampered with or erased? Who are we without our past? These are questions that the story really makes you grapple with.
Yeah, and I think it goes even deeper than that. It makes you question the power dynamics at play. Who has the authority to control our memories, our experiences, our very identities?
That's a really important point. The story highlights the danger of blind trust in authority, especially when it comes to institutions like medicine or government. We see how easily manipulation can be disguised as care, how for your own good can become a tool for control.
And it's not just about the big institutions either. It makes you think about the smaller, more personal ways that we can manipulate each other, even unintentionally. Like, how often do we try to shape someone else's memories to fit our own narrative? Or how often do we let our own biases and assumptions color our recollections of the past?
That's so true. Memory is such a fragile thing, so easily influenced by our emotions, our beliefs, even the way we tell the story to ourselves. And I think that's what makes the Penrose effect such a powerful metaphor. It represents that invisible force that can distort our perception of reality, whether it's coming from external sources or from within our own minds.
You know, I keep coming back to that image of the alley in the story. It's such a simple setting, but it's so loaded with meaning. It's where the protagonist first encounters the Prometheus graffiti, and even after it's been erased, it still holds this strange power over him.
Oh, absolutely. I think the alley represents that liminal space between the conscious and subconscious mind. It's a place where those buried memories and repressed emotions can surface, even if we try to keep them hidden. And the fact that he keeps getting drawn back there, even though it's dangerous, speaks to his deep-seated need to confront the truth, no matter how painful it might be.
Yeah, and it's interesting how the alley is described as this dark, narrow, almost claustrophobic space. It mirrors the protagonist's own psychological state, you know? He's trapped in this maze of his own mind, and he's desperately searching for a way out. But every time he thinks he's found an answer, another wall pops up. Another layer of the mystery is revealed.
It's like he's in a labyrinth, constantly circling back to the same point, but with each loop, he's getting closer to the center, to the heart of the maze. And I think that's what makes the Penrose effect so suspenseful. We're right there with him, navigating those twists and turns, trying to piece together the fragments of truth. And we know that the deeper he goes, the more dangerous it becomes.
Right. And speaking of danger, we can't forget about Lila. She's like a wild card in all of this, and I'm still not sure if she's a friend or foe. On the one hand, she's clearly trying to help the protagonist, warning him about the forces that are trying to control him. But on the other hand, she's holding back information, and she seems to have her own agenda.
Exactly. And that knowing smile of hers, it just screams, I know more than I'm letting on.
Yeah.
I mean, what's her connection to Prometheus? What secrets is she hiding? I have a feeling she's going to play a much bigger role in the chapters to come.
Oh, absolutely. She's a character I'm going to be watching very closely. So as we move on to the next chapter, The Descent, what should our listeners be paying attention to?
Well, first and foremost, I'd say pay attention to the symbolism. The author is using a lot of imagery and metaphors to convey the deeper themes of the story. The maze, the labyrinth, the concept of erasure, the figure of Prometheus. All of these symbols are clues to understanding the protagonist's journey and the forces he's up against.
Right. And I'd add that it's important to pay attention to the protagonist's mental state. He's already on edge, and as he delves deeper into this mystery, the line between reality and delusion is going to become even more blurred. We need to be careful about what we believe, both as readers and as listeners, because the author is a master at playing with our perceptions.
Absolutely. And finally, I'd say be prepared for some twists and turns. This is a psychological thriller after all, and the author isn't afraid to throw us a curveball or two. So buckle up and get ready for a wild ride.
Well said. The Cracks Deepen has definitely left us with more questions than answers, but I'm eager to see where this story takes us next. I have a feeling the descent into this mystery is going to be as terrifying as it is exhilarating.
I agree. I can't wait to see what secrets and revelations await us in the next chapter.
That's it for this deep dive into the Penrose effect. Thanks for joining us on this mind-bending journey. We'll see you next time as we continue our exploration of this captivating and thought-provoking story.